In Texas, we've got a saying, don't start a fight if you ain't got the strength to finish it. That ran through my head the second I laid eyes on Brittany Ashford, this self-appointed HOA president, face still wet behind the ears, marching onto my land and telling me I was banned from drilling a well. Right in the middle of the Maddox Ranch, land my family's held 5 generations. She called it an environmental concern, handed me a piece of paper with more gold leaf and legalese than sense, and I remember thinking, girl, you don't know what kind of fire you just poked. Because what she did, that wasn't just a rookie mistake. That was political suicide. And let me tell you, in Texas, we remember who started it, and we finish it with style. I'm Clay Maddox. And if you ever saw the paperwork in my attic, you'd know. Our water rights go back to my grandfather, back when men settled things with handshakes and a cold beer after. Our pipes run under the feet of every house in this part of the county, including the Meadowbrook community. Brittany seemed so desperate to rule over. She tried to tell me her bylaws, some printout she probably drafted in her college dorm, had more power than legal rights written before her daddy was born. Yeah, that happened. Too bad for her, because not 24 hours after she strutted out of my yard, the sheep in her neighborhood started screaming. Their storage tanks ran dry, and her HOA office went silent as the grave. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up a sec. The sun that morning was already making the gravel sweat. I was elbow deep in the old pump, trying to stretch another year out of parts that belonged in a museum. Thinking about Sarah, gone 3 years now, God rest her, and about my daughter Sage, just 16, but with more steel than most men I know. I saw Brittany picking her way through the yard like it was mine, high heels and blonde hair, voice clipped and rehearsed, calling me Mr. Maddox, like she expected me to salute. She handed me her fancy letter and started in with words like environmental assessment and shared resources. I read it twice, then looked her right in the eye, kept my voice calm, the way Sarah used to tell me to when fools came around. This ranch has been drilling since 1923. We got water rights older than most of the roads in this county. I told her, and she smiled that tight lawyer smile, like she was sure her degree made her bulletproof. What she didn't know was that the Maddox family had been stewards of this land longer than there's been a Meadowbrook. Her idea of shared resources was a spreadsheet. Mine was a handshake and a neighbor's trust. You know what I mean? She kept rattling on about aquifers and contamination, and I walked her over to the main valve, a solid brass chunk my grandfather installed himself, back when trust meant something. I ran my hand along that pipe and asked her if she even knew how her community got water. She didn't. She thought the city handled it. I almost laughed when she turned on her heel, threatening lawyers and legal action, stomping back to her car. I watched her go, remembering the stories my granddad used to tell about neighbors helping neighbors, about how we built this place together, not by writing rules, but by living them. Sage came out just then, hair up in a bun, dust on her jeans. "What's going on, Dad?" she asked, and I handed her the letter. She read it, face going from curious to sharp. "She can't do this, right?" I just shook my head. Brittany didn't know the Maddox family. We never surrender, and we always have a plan B. That night, Sage and I headed up to the attic, where the family keeps everything from old deeds to broken toys and a whole library of contracts in boxes labeled by my grandfather. We dug until Sage found it. Water rights, 1920 to 1950. The contract from 1923 spelled it out. Maddox Ranch not only had the right to drill, but an obligation to provide water to surrounding properties. That meant the whole HOA, including Brittany's, literally ran on Maddox water. The irony almost made me choke. "Dad," Sage grinned. "She just kicked the wrong hornet's nest." We traced the pipes, cross-referenced records, and realized her precious HOA was a legal house of cards, never properly registered, built on bad paperwork, and held together with intimidation. I called up Earl, our neighbor since forever, who told me Brittany had tried the same tricks on him and half a dozen others. "It ain't about the environment, Clay. It's about control," he growled, and I believed him. Sage started pulling up land records. Turns out, every property Brittany threatened was in the path of something called Meadowbrook Development LLC. Guess who was listed as the agent? Brittany herself. It hit me. She was using the HOA to drive folks out, planning a luxury complex, and needed us gone. Every fake regulation, every threat, just pressure to make us fold. The next attack wasn't legal, it was viral. Sage found a TikTok, Brittany calling me an environmental terrorist, her video cutting from our ranch gate to dramatic music, fake stats, and a trending hashtag. Overnight, my phone blew up, reporters, angry neighbors, people calling us poisoners. The comments were a mess. Some neighbor even posted a photo of our gate, telling folks to come watch us. But you can't keep the truth down forever. Sage, bless her heart, dug deeper. She showed me a pattern. Brittany had bought up 3 properties, filed development plans for a luxury complex, and every environmental complaint lined up with someone not willing to sell. It was a land grab, plain and simple. She wanted to own it all, and the HOA was just her tool. That I took a walk to the main water valve, passing decades of family handiwork, and realized Brittany's whole plan depended on water she didn't own, pipes she didn't lay, and a legacy she'd never understand. As the TikTok storm raged, neighbors showed up, quiet, nervous, asking for water. Mrs. Henderson, who's lived down the road forever, brought empty containers. That's the real community, right there. That night, I sat in the dark, holding a picture of Sarah, wondering if I was just an old fool holding back progress. Sage found me, poured 2 glasses of milk, sat across the table, and reminded me, if I backed down, I'd be teaching her that bullies win, and that legacy means nothing. I saw my daughter, not a child but the woman she's becoming, and I remembered. Sometimes, you need to say your doubts out loud to remember your strength. WY morning. We had a plan. Not just defense, offense. We pulled documents, checked records, mapped the pipes. We were ready. As the sun rose, I walked to the main valve, phone in hand, started a Facebook Live for everyone to see. I told them about our rights, our responsibilities, the real story, showed them the old contracts, the pipes, the heart of the system. I explained, clear as day, that Brittany's HOA was built on Maddox water, and she was threatening the supply her own community depended on. Then, with thousands watching, I closed the valve. The fallout was fast. By nightfall, Brittany's decorative sheep were screaming, the HOA tanks ran dry, and the whole office went silent. News crews showed up, neighbors demanded answers, and Earl called to laugh, saying, "You just turned her environmental campaign into a water conservation project." Marcus Webb, her lawyer, and turns out, her brother-in-law, showed up with a restraining order. I asked him, on camera, how an unregistered HOA could issue legal documents. Sage walked in, holding receipts, proof the HOA, the land deals, all of it was a fraud. Earl arrived with a box of records, including a 1978 geological survey showing a massive aquifer under the neighborhood, Brittany's real prize. As we explained the scam on live TV, cops rolled up, and for the first time, they didn't arrest me. They cuffed Brittany for fraud, conspiracy, and abuse of authority. The press conference went viral, with desperate sheep crying in the background as proof that sometimes poetic justice makes a hell of a soundtrack. After all that, Sage's secret documentary, recordings, documents, interviews, premiered at the county courthouse. The whole community saw it. The difference between real stewardship and fake activism, between cooperation and exploitation. The HOA was dissolved, Marcus lost his license, and Brittany's plans fell apart. We turned the water cooperative over to the community. Open, transparent, managed right. A year later, Brittany came back, humble, in work clothes, asking if she could volunteer at the new environmental center. I saw real regret in her eyes and pointed her to the field, because everyone deserves a chance to earn redemption, especially if they're willing to learn the difference between protecting land and using it as a weapon. So yeah, in Texas, we finish what others start. Sometimes you fight with a gun, sometimes with a contract, and sometimes all it takes is a steady hand on the right valve. Every time I hear those sheep in the field, see neighbors working the water lines, or watch Sage teaching the next generation, I remember, a quiet act can say more about justice and community than 1,000 speeches. Now, let me ask, Have you ever faced someone who used good intentions to hurt others? How did you fight back? What did you learn about real versus fake authority? Share your story below, because every time we talk about this, we make it a little harder for the next bully to win.